Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, we have Joe Chura. He's the founder of Dealer Inspire websites. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So, Joe, 2019 has given you an opportunity to breathe a little bit post the acquisition from Cars.com. You've extended your reach. You've expanded your product set. For people who are not familiar with your story, give us a little elevator pitch. How did we get started? Where are you today, and what markets are you serving?
Sure. So first of all, thanks again for having me. I will say that you would think post-acquisition I'd have a chance to breathe, but I've probably been busier than ever. So it's been, yeah, it doesn't seem fair, but that's great. This is what I have a passion for, and it's been a great ride so far. So Dealer Inspire, I'm going to back up even before Dealer Inspire. So I created a company called Launch Digital Marketing in 2011. I had previously been in the automotive space since 1998. Started off on the assembly line at Ford Motor Company building the 1998 Ford Taurus, which was the most popular car in America at the time. So it was
and do you
pretty
take credit
busy
for
working
that?
on the assembly line. Yep. I don't necessarily take credit for that, but I will say that I finished school while building cars. So I'd read textbooks on the assembly line and work on cars in between. And one of my jobs when a car would get to my station was to fasten the seatbelt. So I tell people if they do have a 98 Taurus to check their seatbelts. Because I would take credit for if it was loose. But in all seriousness, that really taught me the value of hard work. Really kind of got into automotive in a unique way, I think, compared to a lot of folks out there. And this wasn't a summer job. I spent years at Ford while working and going to school. And then after 4 years, I was able to finagle my way to the marketing and sales division, where I got to call on car dealerships. And it was at a time when I had to convince a lot of dealerships that the internet wasn't going to become a fad. And I had a big belief, I'm glad I was right, that the internet would propel and be very, very instrumental to a dealer's future. And, back when I was a kid, I was infatuated with computers, programming when I was in third grade. And that really is what drove my passion for computing and so forth. So fast forward to, 2005, 2006, I've called on a few hundred Ford dealers, really got to understand the operations, got to understand from an OEM perspective how dealers work. And then in 2008, after 10 years at Ford, I left to be the general manager at a car dealership. I was handed the keys as a GM, and I thought that I would walk into the store to the dealership as a GM and just rock it out and say, this is easy. I was a Ford guy. I know how dealerships work. And I will tell you that it was not like that. It was a very difficult job. The first day I was handed a Foursquare, which I didn't even know what it was, and I was asked to approve a finance deal. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And markers everywhere, and the finance manager came to me and asked me to approve it. And I said with confidence, this is approved. And then I figured out what all that meant. Luckily, we made some money on that deal. But the reality is it taught me the value and the hard work that dealerships go through. And coming from the manufacturer level, I wasn't equipped to just come in and run a store. It wasn't that easy. But, you tend to be put in a situation and you need to figure things out. So that's what I did. So for the next 2 years, I ran a couple stores as a general manager in the state dealer group, learned a lot about the retail side of the business, developed a passion for it. But one of the things I didn't have the ability to do at that time is really do a lot on the digital side. So in 2010, I left to run another dealership, but this time they're really focused on digital marketing. And long story short, in 2010, took this dealership, increased sales by 300% online, and said I could do this for other dealers. So partnered up with a couple people and launched digital marketing. And the only thing we did is we focused on SEO and SEM, and we drove traffic to dealerships. At the time, we were driving traffic to, there wasn't as many website providers, but there was certainly quite a few. And we would keep hitting walls with what we could and couldn't do within these platforms where we were driving traffic. And at some points in time, we were restricted on the quantity of pages that we could build on behalf of dealers. We couldn't set up goal conversion tracking properly. And a dealer then a year later, 2012, asked me about his ROI. He said, "Hey, Joe, you've been doing SEO for us for a year. You've been doing SEM. Can you show me a customer that actually bought a vehicle from your efforts?" And Brian, I looked at him and I said, this dealer's name is Bob. And I said, "Bob, we tripled your traffic, you doubled your conversions, we dove in your CRM, we saw how many leads we generated." He goes, "Good, show me one person that bought because of your efforts." And I couldn't tell him. And I was very flustered. I was trying to come up with a way that I could show him how our efforts work, even though quantitatively I know the efforts worked. So then I said, well, what if we could take control of the form submission and then kind of go back and look and say, hey, where did the referral come from that went to the website that submitted a form? Meaning, did the customer come from Google? Did they come from a third-party website? Did they come from our paid search efforts and so forth? And if we could have that referral, which is called an HTTP referrer, and that's basically, if you think about a website, when you visit a website, there's like kind of hidden links buried in the URL. And there's a lot of data that flows to a browser, and some of that data is user device and all of these things. That's how Google Analytics collects that data.
Right.
Well, one of which is where did this customer come from? So basically what I did is simply I attached that HTTP referrer to a form submission. And I put a cookie on that previous browser to say, hey, if someone had been on the site 10 different times, how would we give credit for that traffic piece? And again, this is 2012. So I was not a believer in last click, as I know you've talked a lot about. So right. I said, at best, let's do first click attribution, and let's grab that first referrer that we find, and let's leave it there for 60 days. And every form submission that comes off a dealer's website, let's pass that referring data on. So long story short, what I was able to do from that and that concept is start to measure performance in a different way. And at the time, it was really unique, right? Like a lot of people weren't doing that. So that was the advent of what we called our true ROI dashboard. So then kind of light bulbs went off. We thought about the UX of websites. We thought about the flexibility that dealers really wanted. And I basically got with my current partners at launch, a couple other people, and I said, let's build a website platform, but let's build it in a different company. Let's focus on software. And that was the advent of Dealer Inspire. And it was solely for those two things, or three really. Like we kept getting blocked into producing what we wanted to for dealers, be able to have the flexibility, install goal conversion, and so forth. Second, design. And third, the ability to measure performance in a way that people weren't.
And Joe, when you started to get some attention from dealers on a national level, that's when we first met. I remember you took a very bold decision to base a piece of your core CMS on WordPress, and it turned out to be a brilliant choice. You've been a AWA award winner every year since you've been in the running. You've innovated. You've been first to market with some amazing tools. And today, I would say that your company has a pretty long experience compared to others with digital retailing with your online shopper product. When was it first put on a dealer's website? Let's just say online shopper version 1.0. When did that really hit you that these standard form conversions were not giving consumers what they really wanted when they were on the dealer's website?
2016 was the first time that we actually deployed a version of Online Shopper. We had been working on it since 2015 or so, and it went on the Cox Chevrolet. And basically our hypothesis at the time was to create a tool where a customer was empowered to desk their own deal. But even before that, before the first version went live, and in 2015, what I really thought the problem was we were solving, I think it's still a problem today, is the paperwork side of online deals, right? It's how do you send a DocuSign over to a customer, or DocuSign like bundle, and have a consumer actually kind of complete forms at the convenience of their own home or their work, not have to walk into a car dealership. So the first version actually, before it went live, was what we call now like a paperwork pusher, where dealership can complete like, this interface or complete forms, and basically it pushes out like a DocuSign like bundle using a bunch of APIs and fun stuff like that. And we developed really awesome technology that still exists today. But what happened is we found that because of the disparate systems of DMSs, of finance tools, of banks, et cetera, that became a challenge back then. So then we pivoted a bit before we launched it on the dealer's website. We kept that code. We still have that code. And we said, you know what? Let's empower the customer to kind of desk their own deal. Let's give them the tools and the levers that they need to be able to figure out an accurate monthly payment, because that's how customers shop. At the same time, knowing that gross profit was something that dealers just didn't want to give up, meaning I didn't want to create a tool where it was like, where it asked the customer to like make an offer or something like that. Because I believe that if you give customers enough levers to pull that can adjust their trade-in value, that can adjust their credit score, or what they deem their credit score to be, or what they owe on their car, what their term is, you can really get to a down payment without giving up gross profit. So that was the first kind of version that was launched of Online Shopper, still around today. We iterated on it, of course, and that today we call Online Shopper Redline. Okay,
so it has a new name.
It does, because we have a new version of Online Shopper, and I can get into why we have two versions. But yes, it's Online Shopper Redline, and then the new version that we just launched recently is Online Shopper Electric.
Ooh, okay. So before we jump in between Electric and Redline, I remember those early days. You showed it to me on coxchevy.com. I remember I was like, wow, this is really cool. Consumers do want a pretty clear and accurate estimate of what they're going to pay. Today, there's over 20 companies trying to provide the technology to give consumers accurate, or penny perfect, as some people maintain it to be. So let's talk about the core technology today. If a dealer wants to have a full, robust experience, including integration with F&I and their banks, which would they pick, Redline or Electric?
So really both. The big difference is, what we found, Brian, is if you want to get F&I stood up and you wanted to really kind of go deep and provide that deep customer experience, it takes a lot of work. It takes conversations, it takes integrations. If you look at the companies that provide solutions to dealers that have to do with buying a vehicle, right? Like from F&I providers to the dealer tracks and the Route Ones of the world to DMSs, et cetera, you start adding all those components, and all of a sudden you get into a very, very high number of integrations that you need to support, right? And what we found is just like customers like things easy, dealers do as well. So we were struggling with onboarding dealers because we would have all these questions. We'd have accessories. We would have conversations about their top selling accessories. And the onboarding time of those dealers would be upwards of months. I mean, it was pretty crazy. So we said, what if we thought about this differently? And what if we made it really easy for dealers just to turn on? And we actually stripped out some of that stuff. So if they don't want necessarily to have that F&I conversation now or accessories, let's just create a tool, a digital retailing tool, that once we get the banks that they work with, we can just turn on, like over a weekend. And what we found is our sales velocity increased by 10x, our onboarding time decreased by 20x, and we started onboarding dealers and showing results almost immediately. Like we would literally get a dealer to sign up, we'd turn it on, and over a weekend we would get an email back saying they sold 10 cars from it.
So
and
Joe,
what it was is,
and that more simpler version, what is that called?
That's Redline. That's Online Shopper Redline.
Okay, so a dealer says, look, I know that digital retailing is moving quickly. I'm not really sure how many consumers are going to use it. Let me put it up without a lot of cost, without a lot of disruption, and let me see the level of engagement that the consumer has with this tool. Is that what they're thinking, Joe?
Yes, that's what they're thinking, and they want to provide a better experience for their dealers, but there's a lot of kind of complexity there, and they may not want to deal with it right then, but they want to provide something different. So that's exactly what they're thinking.
And then the electric would be a dealer who would want a more robust and detailed integration with their own local banks or credit unions with all of their F&I products and things like that?
So Online Shopper Redline, going back to the first version, works with the dealer's banks. We can apply markup. We get to essentially a penny perfect payment there. What we don't do in Redline and what we don't spend a ton of time on is the integration of things like F&I accessories, various things like that. That's possible, it's there, but we found more success stripping it out, believe it or not, to get these dealers stood up quicker. And we approach it in a way where, hey, you're not transacting the whole deal online, but this is essentially a very enhanced lead machine. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, we on average, or I should say that, we're seeing 92% increases in net leads just off of this. And the way we approach it is very kind of TurboTax style, where we provide these like simple interview screens and let the customer step along the way and piece together their own deal. The Online Shopper Electric does the same thing in the sense of working with local banks, penny perfect payments, but it's a lot more integrated in F&I operations. There's more questions around accessories. There's going to be the ability to do a soft pull, so if a customer doesn't know what their credit score is, they can get it right there. Just more enhanced things that take longer to stand up. And there's a different feature set as well, like right. Comparing vehicles. Yeah.
Ooh, so let's get to that. One of the things that I can tell you, since I recently purchased a car, comparing different trim levels or different models within the same OEM was very difficult to do on a website. It's almost felt like I was taking notes. I couldn't see things side by side. I couldn't see payments side by side. Are you indicating that Online Shopper has evolved to allow side-by-side comparisons of payments to give a consumer a little bit more confidence that they're selecting the right car?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm a data junkie. Our team, we make decisions off data. And what we found is with the first version of Online Shopper Redline, that we have today, where it generates a lot of leads, because we're integrated with DMSs, Brian, we can see matchback sales. So I can see, okay, Brian Pash submitted a lead on a Nissan Altima, but he ended up buying a Nissan Rogue, let's say. And what we saw is the percentage of people that that ended up buying a vehicle that they submitted a lead on was low. It was like less than 50%. So we were taking these customers down this really narrow funnel toward a vehicle. And that customer most of the time didn't end up buying that specific vehicle. So we said, well, what if we created a way where we can have a comparison engine and a dealership can provide the customer the experience to compare multiple vehicles at once, to look at terms across those vehicles. That's really kind of a mobile first experience, and that emulates some of what, and I'm cautious using this word because it's overused, but what Amazon's comparison feature is on their app, right? If you're looking at an Amazon product and you scroll down, they do a really nice job of having structured data underneath a product that you can easily compare product to product. And that is what we do with Online Shopper Electric, to provide that comparison. And again, a customer can go in there and say, okay, well, this vehicle, I want to see what 60 months does, and this one, maybe I'll sacrifice an extra 12 months and go 72, or change all of them at once just to kind of just to compare. And one other thing to add there, when I look at the future, what I believe is of digital retailing, it's to have this kind of garage that a customer can store their vehicles in, curate a list of vehicles, not just on Dealer Inspire websites, but potentially on a website like Cars.com, right? We have integration with a huge marketplace. So if a customer is kind of curating a list of their vehicles, why couldn't they also go to Cars.com and see that same list? So it's this virtual garage that kind of passes from one site to the next and is unlocked by a customer's login, right? So they can log in at any time and be able to kind of pull up their virtual garage.
So, Joe, is that a feature that's on the roadmap for a consumer to save cars on Cars.com? And if the dealer has a Dealer Inspire website, when they get to the Dealer Inspire website, those cars are still there?
That is one of the features we are working on for Cars.com. So we've launched the Redline version of Online Shopper on Cars.com. That's been going for at least the last 3 months, and we're seeing really good success there in terms of the ability for dealers to generate more leads with rich data and so forth. So we are, like everything we do, Brian, we iterate. We launch something and we iterate on it. One of the iterations are how do we think differently about the shared garage experience? And in the future, I also think the shared garage could be essentially like a shared wallet where you can store service information in there and so forth. I know personally in my household, I drive a Ford, my wife has a Mercedes. So she has her own app. She needs to be responsible for when she needs service and so forth. She hasn't even turned that app on. My Ford app, I use it to turn on my car. We don't have kind of a shared kind of garage experience or shared wallet to know what's going on with our vehicles in our household. So when I look at the future of what this could look like, just imagine the possibilities of being able to store a lot more information about your household in there. Like if you have a lease, when's your lease up? Be able to provide private offers in that shared kind of garage or wallet experience and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But yes, to answer your question, we are iterating on Cars.com to continually enhance and provide a better shared experience from the Dealer Inspire websites and the Cars.com marketplace.
So, Joe, let's talk about what you're seeing in the field. One of the biggest, I'd say, gaps right now that dealers are telling me from some of the largest players in this field, which we're calling modern retail experience or digital retailing, is the connection of what's done online to in the store. So let's just say someone is on the dealer's website, they're using Online Shopper Redline or Electric. They've really done a lot of work. They've gotten a near penny perfect or penny perfect number. They feel like, hey, if I go in there, I'm expecting to save a lot of time because, I did all the work. How are you helping dealers with that traffic flow and the ability to call up a deal? Because what I'm hearing is sometimes the handoff is so sloppy that the consumer's being asked questions that are almost like a traditional road to the sale meet and greet, and the consumer's looking at them with cross-eyed and said, I did a lot of work online. Do you know what I did?
Yeah, so this is why I love having conversations with you, because you remind me of things we have in our tools right now, or why we did certain things, right? So Online Shopper Electric is just that. So the other thing, and thank you for bringing that up, one of the biggest things that's different about it is because it's login based, you can pull up a dealer's website, go to it. So if that's a kiosk or an iPad, you just click login, Brian, and we went away from like the notion of a customer having to create a username and password. What it does is customer can put in their telephone number or their email address, and it shoots them a code, like a two-factor authentication code, right? But there's no password. So that code is their password. So there's not a lot of friction to be able to walk into a dealership and pull up that deal. And a salesperson can have that on their iPad. They can have that on a kiosk. They can have it on really any computer, anywhere, even on their mobile phone, and pull up that customer's deal by their phone number or email address.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Joe, one of the things I'm fascinated with as I'm working on a new book is the documentation of the difference in time it takes to purchase when someone does a lot of work online. I reached out to Clint Burns from the Next Up, and his managed retail sales process technology actually knows, how long does that meet and greet take? How long does it take to get on the test drive? What's the average test drive? What's the wait time between test drive and F&I? How much time in the F&I office? And then how much time for delivery? He has all that data. And I asked him, do you know the difference in time when someone does their work, online on a DR flow? And right now he doesn't have any dialogue with the DR companies that would allow him through an API during the check-in to differentiate, right, those check-ins as people who are a fresh up, never done anything on the DR tool versus the DR tool. So number one, I want to encourage you to consider, talking to him about that, because I'm just fascinated with the time stamping. Now, since you have the ability to call up the deal in the mobile app or the tablet or the kiosk, do you have any data on those timestamps between someone who comes in who hasn't done something online or compared to the people who've done a lot of work on Online Shopper?
I would love to give you an answer based off stats, because I firmly believe that's what you need to look at to make decisions. The electric version is so new. We have a dozen or so dealers live, a lot more coming. So I don't have a good aggregate amount of data to timestamp it, but I would love to provide that to you as soon as I have a good subset of data. I mean, theoretically, if done correctly, absolutely, it can be much quicker, right? But as you and I know, change takes time. And even though, we have these good solutions for customers, in many cases, the CRM responses to these customers don't change very much. So this is something else we could talk about too, is like, how do we change that behavior? So meaning if a lead goes into a CRM system, is that experience of that customer different from a get e-price lead? And in some cases, the experience is different, but in other cases, it's not, right? So not only do we have to look at, hey, is the time quicker, but how is that dealer responding to that customer, and are they responding in a different way? I've looked at and tested really good dealers that do a great job, and a great job in terms of their market. They're always number one or two in their market. And in some cases, they're still not even changing the CRM responses of a digital lead versus another lead. So I look at that as that's our fault. How do we make that easier for them? And that's what we are working on next, is a solution to kind of help them with that response, to help them treat those customers differently than the customer that just wants the best price on a car.
I'm so glad you brought that up because Glenn and I are working on this national OEM project to roll out digital retailing and to document the challenges that dealers have and to create a blueprint or a playbook for this OEM. And one of the things that we found is that no one has really done a good job from the DR companies in integrating the proper ADF-XML codes to be able to have separate workflows, meaning the way that, leads are being handled because of the old ADF spec, because API integrations can be a little clunky, is really embarrassing. Most DR tools have to put a hyperlink in the comments field, and the BDC operator has to click on a link, leave the CRM, go to another tool. So it's kind of nutty. So what we're trying to document as well, Joe, is how do dealers set expectations for measurement? And what I'm finding is dealers don't have even conversion goals set up or event tracking to see where DR tools are working and where consumers are hanging up. They are not differentiating those lead sources with different workflows and different staffing who's prepared to treat that person as if they were in the showroom. And then we have no real clear ways to measure productivity. Dealers are going to ask just some very basic questions. Aside from, am I going to sell more cars? They're going to say, is my PVR going to go up or down? Am I going to see significant labor cost reductions? Am I going to see a higher CSI? Will my marketing be more efficient? And the only thing that we've known from looking and talking with a lot of DR companies and dealers is that the PVR isn't going down, which is good. But dealers need to reduce labor costs. That's the only way they're going to stay profitable. They need to increase the customer satisfaction levels, and all of those other metrics are kind of fuzzy right now. And I'm glad you're working on it, but as an industry, we got to work closer together because right now it's super clunky and we're really jumping through hoops to get DR working in scale.
Yeah, I'm 100% aligned there. So the other thing with the CRM systems, they were built at a time where this concept of digital retailing didn't exist, right? And the bad thing about the note section in the CRM ADF XML is it's really unstructured data. So you could throw a bunch of stuff in there, but you can't report off of it because it's not structured, right?
That's right.
So it doesn't. So how do you make decisions? Well, you rely then on your digital retailing tool to give you reporting. Now we provide matchback reporting and so forth, but that doesn't paint the whole entire picture. So this is where, Brian, like I'm looking at it, and everything you just said is 100% the issue we're facing, is that there are so many blocking and tackling things that we're asking dealers to do. Can you imagine saying, hey, can you help run a report to figure out what's the downstream effect of your digital retailing customer? That would that's a lot to ask. So again, looking at this is our problem. So this is why the first step of our CRM system that we are working on is the back end of online shopper. It's called automatic because we need to automate this for dealerships. We cannot expect them to have to figure this stuff out, right? The more I'm in this space and having been a dealer, knowing what I deal with on a daily basis and what I dealt with, right? You're dealing with customers, you're dealing with parts inventory, you're dealing with fixed operation and so forth. Like there's so much activity, and this web is becoming a more mysterious place than ever with a lot of work being asked. So I think I don't want to say the winner because I think there'll be multiple winners, but I think the winning play is to automate a lot of this for dealerships. Well, if you look at the existing systems that are out today, I think it's almost impossible because you got to mix and match all these different things, and that is why I'm a firm believer when you look at the problem with attribution. You look at measurement of lead quality. You look at the ability to converse with your customers in very unique ways through either text or through chat, like conversations and so forth. there needs to be a place where kind of all that's centralized, where it's the hub of a platform, right?
And Joe, I am so interested to eventually see how Automatic looks. You see, I've been, kind of preaching to the choir. I know you aligned with me on this. The CRM platforms, the ADF XML file, which has not been updated since 2000, has none of the data fields that we need, has clunky communication when dealers want to text or message. And of course, there's 3 or 4 different integration points, which are costing the dealers a few $100 a month, whether they know it or not. I want to end our podcast on one thing that I'm the most excited about. And you showed me a solution. So let me tell our listeners today what I'm most excited about for the next year. It's associated with digital retailing, but it's not. It's a solution that makes Dealer Inspire stand out from their peers. I've been looking at the form completion rates. So let's just say a dealer's not ready to go into digital retailing. Or they want to do red lines, something simpler and easier to give consumers more choice. Still, at the end of the day, dealers have anywhere from 5 to 10, sometimes even 13 call to action buttons on their website. All of those call to action buttons, except, say, an online shopper workflow, pop up a form. And for most dealers, that requires an email address. And for my 22-year-old son, that's the stupidest thing to do because he doesn't like to email. So here we are. We have 19,000 franchise dealers and so many independent dealers. They're driving people to the website, and a consumer's just asking a simple question: check availability or unlock price. And what we're basically saying in 2019, we will not answer your question right now. You're going to have to fill out this form, and you're going to have to give us your email address. And at some point, we're going to answer your question. And what hit me was this data. I've tested now a few dozen dealers. The form completion rate, if I click on Get ePrice or if I click on Check Availability, what percentage of people actually fill out the form because it's an email address? It's less than 40%. Then I asked dealers, of those type of leads, what percent gives two-way engagement? They said about 50%. So here's what just struck me so crazy, and I called you up because at Maury's Automotive Group, it was where I was doing the research. They're a Dealer Inspire customer, and the general manager's mouths drop. Are you telling me, Brian, a simple check availability button, I'm only getting less than 20% two-way engagement? Say, yeah, because they thought it was going to answer it right now, or unlock price. They thought they were going to see the price. And what you've done is really turn the sales funnel upside down by taking a unique approach using your chatbot and chat technology to get the consumer's contact information and answer the question when it's right on the website. And my hope is that dealers realize they can double or triple their two-way engagement, double or triple usable contact information, which is the phone, so it allows them to text or call. Joe, it was so amazing to see it in action on one of your customers. I mean, this seems to be the biggest simple opportunity of changing how we answer consumers while they're right on our website and still be able to contact them.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. So there's 2 things there. One, a couple of years ago, we looked at the same stats that you brought up. How many people are clicking on these call to action buttons but not completing a form? The other metric that I found when we did that study is that if you look at domestic websites like FCA or GM or Ford, and then you compare that to a higher end like Mercedes and so forth, you actually see imports, that percentage goes down even more because customers are reluctant because the price of the vehicle is much higher. So we took that, and at around that same time, Brian, we were also faced with this compliance challenge that dealers always want to be able to show their best price, but they can't show below MAP pricing, right? So it has to be a one-on-one interaction. So if a customer submits a lead form, you can go back to them and say, hey, here's our best price. Well, why can't that experience be better online? So if, to your point, a customer is right in front of that screen. If I'm the OEM, I'm saying, what's the best experience that I'm going to rely on this dealership to get back to this customer, and I'm going to put it on them. Or what if we can automate this, grab another field from the IMS and provide that through our chatbot? And to your credit, you asked about this, and we had it, and we're just expanding that. So now just imagine taking that question, answering it with a price, and then going further. Hey, do you have a trade-in? Then it uses our trade-in bot to calculate a trade-in value. Then all of a sudden, Brian, you're desking the whole deal through a chatbot.
Yes.
So I completely agree with you that I think that's the future.
Yeah, and dealers see, it's so funny. Joe, how many times you've been asked this question? I get asked all the time. Brian, how come I'm not getting more leads? And I say, because you're using a strategy that's 19 years old. When websites first came out, there were no BDCs. People asked for information. It always said call for price. So we had this model. Well, we're not ready to answer people in real time. We'll collect the form. We'll get back to them. Today, we have the ability, and the consumer expects when they have a button, unlock our best price or unlock price. They expect to see it. They're like a scratch-off game. They want to see it right there. Well, we can get their first name and last name. We can get their phone number and unlock it. And now we have the best communication tool, which is the phone, rather than an email, which is very inefficient. Joe, we could go on for hours. And I've been so impressed with your metal tool, with your autocorrect software for inventory. We got to get you on another podcast, but let's just wrap up with this. If a dealer who is listening to today's podcast and is interested in Redline or interested in electric, is there just the main URL, or is there a dedicated sub-URL that they need to go to for information? How would they do some more research?
Yes, so you can either go to dealerinspire.com or you can contact me directly. I would love to talk with you and show you not only what we have, but what we're thinking for the future of digital retailing and our company and so forth. So my email is jchura@dealerinspire.com. My phone number is 773-225-0542. Feel free to text me. I like to get back to people pretty quickly, and or just go to our website and check it out. We have some really good animations and some more details about each one of those solutions as well.
Well, Joe, congratulations on all your success. I'm so excited that post-Cars.com acquisition, you're accelerating, you're busier than ever. Listen, you're young. This is the time to innovate. I wait for the day that your CRM comes out. I can't wait to see a modern, relevant CRM product that solves the limitations that dealers are frustrated with today. And so we wish you the best of success, and I look forward to seeing you at the upcoming PCG conferences, the DMSC conference in Napa in May, and of course the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit in beautiful Palm Beach in November. If this is the first time you're listening to one of our podcasts, you should know that every Monday I release a new podcast, and this is one of a series of interviews with 20 thought leaders that are trying to create a modern retail experience through software, process, and innovations to give both consumers and dealers a relevant way and an attractive way and even a fun way to buy their next vehicle. And that's desperately needed in our industry. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast, and we look forward to hosting you at a future podcast event.